Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment question comes from Hannah Martell. And this was in response to, I wish the Phantom was cast compliant, System 1 operationally vague. A mailbag I did in February 2023. And Hannah writes, it is infuriating that my Phantom 8 will not just connect up to my iPad and pass USB audio. I don't like working on a laptop at all while playing music, but an iPad is so seamless and it opens up so many possibilities at your fingertips. For almost 4,000 US, I should have expected it to have. I shouldn't have to, but I'd have to pay Roland for an upgrade to a class compliant USB at some point. Now, I really can understand your feeling after spending the better part of $4,000 on a workstation and finding that, unlike the Kronos and the Montage, it doesn't connect to your laptop directly. Although, having said that, with both of those, you do have to load driver packages. But I wouldn't offer to pay Roland for the option, as it could easily possibly bankrupt you. And I mean that with all sincerity, because I suspect that it's a complete rewrite of the operating system in so many different ways. I've said before, I suspect Roland have developed an interface mechanism, and all these instruments use the same pattern. And it would probably cost far too much to go back and re-engineer in all of them and fix the issues on all of the instruments. Plus, you have something even worse here, which is because Roland no longer support a lot of these instruments that have these drivers. If you don't get the drivers and then they make them all class compliant, then all those old ones won't work anymore. Now, this next question comes from Don Devor, and this was in response to Behringer makes money from streaming. What's missing from workstation upgrades? A mailbag I did in April 2023. And Don writes, let's talk about workstations. Sorry, couldn't resist that. I've been working with Phantom 7 for about 2 years, and I finally installed the Supernatural pianos. They sound pretty good, but have 0 parameter controls. So in other words, this is it. Take it or leave it. A couple of things missing from Phantom: velocity sensitive pads. Bit of a letdown really. I guess it's better than padless Kronos. A linear sequencing recording mode, and records in a loop based on 64 measure patterns. A dedicated mixer button. I've never used the Master FX button or the motion pad button, but a mixer button would have been really, really useful. I'm still hoping Roland will, or Rolando, as he said here, will update the Phantom OS with an option for turning off visual pop-ups that take over the entire touchscreen for 4 seconds every time you use a slider or knob, essentially breaking the touch function, or at least have the pop-up use less screen space. I have to admit, I almost sold my Phantom because of this. When switching between scene view and mixer mode or pattern mode, the visual layout changes from vertical to horizontal. The mixer uses a round of virtual knobs for volume controls, but the physical controller is linear sliders. Infuriating interface design, but I tolerate its flaws because it's such an amazing sounding instrument. Not the first person who's made those sort of comments, to be honest. But as I've said on the channel quite a few times, I have little stroke no experience of the Phantom. I still I'd love to own one, but that's the reality of where we are at the moment. I haven't been in to play with it. I find it interesting that you have 0 parameter controls over the Supernatural pianos, but if you say it's a take it or leave it function, I have to believe what you say. But I would have thought you'd be able to change how the envelope is deployed. That I do find quite fun, quite interesting. What I think this tells us is that these are not generated by an engine, but are a sample of source instruments. Therefore, whatever is sampled is what you get. Now, I know I've talked about the Korg Oasis before, but I do miss the pad feature between that and the Kronos. I find them very useful for playing wide chords, because you can set the pad up to actually play very wide chords across the keyboard. Brilliant function, which has to be supplemented with a nano on a Kronos. So you effectively have to buy a microcontroller or a MIDI controller. You are the first musician, I have to be honest, that says that you are annoyed, that the annoyance you feel from the pop-ups being super annoying and interrupting your workflow. This should be a switch on the setup that you either have them on or off, or you can change the amount of time that they stay on screen for. I agree, if that was happening to me all the time, it would drive me bonkers. Again, I think this sounds like a disconnect between them that develop and them that play. I find that quite often. Developers love to develop user interfaces and say that's the way that we should be going, without any reference to the user about, you know what, that's just damn annoying. I had a software developer years ago working for me who was a UI guy, and he knew best, and I ended up having to fire him. That's the God's honest truth. I ended up having to fire the guy because he just wouldn't listen. The users were saying, that's not how we want it to work. That's not how we want it laid out. And he's going, but I know best. I know, user workflow 101 says it should be. I'm going, they're the users. You're developing the system for them. Why won't you listen to what they're saying? And in the end, it just got to the point where it became untenable in the end, and we decided to part company. And the new guy came in and said, if that's what you want, I'll do it. And did it. And the users were really, really happy. Anyway, you said about these trade-offs for the sound of the instrument. Again, I really want to get in and play the instrument. But really, really thanks for the comments.